Well, friends, if you lead any sort of team, whether it be on your ministry team, maybe a worship team, maybe you are a part of an education team, maybe you're just a manager at your job or your company where you have people that report to you, the most common deterrent for a team for them to get to where they are now to where they need to be is what we're going to talk about today, and that's development. Development is one of those concepts that we all agree we need to do it. We need to do more development, and we need to really coach our teams and get them from where they are to where we want them to be. But who has the time for that? And it's just another thing that's added to our plate. And so today, what I want to do is I want to unpack a few thoughts on development. This is coming from me, where I've spent the last 20 years working in church ministries, being a pastor, being working in the secular world, running this business. I've had a lot of teams that I've been fortunate enough to care for and to develop. And so there's a few common traits and a few common truths that if we can get this down, you can take your team from where they are now to where you want them to be 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now. So we're going to tackle that today. Now, I'm going to be talking a lot about developing a worship team specifically. That's just the world that I know. That's what I've done the most of. But the reality is, a team is really, this can be applicable for any situation, for any one of your teams. So if you are any of the situations I mentioned before, or if you just care for people and you have a team that you look after, today's podcast is going to be really helpful for you. So let's dive right in. The first truth of developing a team is this simple fact: if you're not intentionally developing your team, then your team is not growing. Like, think of a potted plant. Like, if I'm not intentionally watering it and giving it sunlight, it's not going to grow. And all of you who have tried to have plants grow like I have and they just don't grow, you know, if you don't care for it, if you don't have a plan of how you're going to do that, how you're going to develop it, take care of it, feed it, if you're not intentionally growing your team, then can I tell you that your team is just never going to grow? Like, it's not growing. Now, some of that could happen by accident, right? Like, sometimes, despite our best efforts, like, plants will grow, plants are resilient, using that plants analogy. Like, sometimes our teams will grow, but if we don't have an intentional plan of developing and coaching up our team, it's not going to grow systemically and at the pace that you want, right? Like, I am a firm believer that if there's not a structure set up for people to grow, like one that there's a clear entry point and one that they can see the path of how they get to their own personal dreams and goals, while it also aligns with your organization. If there's not a structure in place like that, people won't stay for very long. Now, what that long is different for everybody, right? Like, that could be, they might stay for 6 months, they might stay for a year, maybe a year and a half, 2 years. But we would all agree, if you manage people, you want people that are there, that are committed to the team, that aligns with their personal missions and with the missions of your organization, right? So I have seen this in my own personal life, where I've been a part of organizations that I had things that I wanted to be developed in, and skills that I wanted to learn, but there wasn't a plan for me to get that training, to get that development. So after a while, you don't see a future, and you don't see the growth that you want to see. So therefore, like, it didn't make me want to stay long term. And so the first thought is, if you're not intentionally developing your team, it's not going to grow. And the second thought I would have for you is, sometimes we need to sacrifice in the short term for gain in the long term. All right, so what do I mean by that? A lot of times I've seen this in the worship space, where you get a new family to the church, and you get somebody who maybe plays an instrument or maybe sings, but has never sang in like a modern CCM worship context. And so what happens is, we want the people, but then we tell them, we put them through an audition and we go through it, and then we tell them, well, thank you for applying, but You need to go get some more training and then come back. And the heart of that is right. Like if you have a spirit of excellence, which is the term we throw around a lot, but if you want the best for your team, the natural inclination is you want the best for your team. And when we try to bring on people that maybe aren't there, it can diminish that. But can I flip that for you and just encourage you to think about maybe somebody's 60% today is going to be 100% down the road. Like maybe they're not ready today, but you have a plan for how am I going to get there? How am I going to take the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? How can I get them to where they want to go? To be a productive member of our team, to grab our culture, and to be a functioning member of what we're doing. But sometimes you have to say, hey, you're not ready today, but I see something in you. And if you're willing to work at it, if you're willing to be coached, and if you're willing to be developed, I think that you can get the skills necessary to be a top performer. And let me talk specifically to our church teams. So, worship leaders, youth pastors, kids group leaders, all of that. Please do not turn people away without a plan for development. Please don't say, hey, thank you for applying, but you need to go get some lessons and then come back. They won't come back. I don't think in all the times I've ever seen that, I don't think I've ever seen anybody be turned away at an audition, told to, hey, go get some lessons and come back. And they did that with no hard feelings, and they just wanted to be a part of the culture. And they were there long term. Now, I'm sure it's happened. And I'm sure that you may be thinking of the hundreds or tens of people that have done that. But can I just encourage you as a church leader, specifically in the church, please don't turn people away without a plan for development. Like, don't just say you're not good enough, come back when you are good enough. Like, imagine what that feels like to somebody who maybe has never sang before or ever played an instrument before or ever played in this setting before. And you just told them, go get good and then you'll have value. Man, that breaks my heart even just saying that. Like, be okay with saying, hey, you're not quite where we want you to be or where we think we are, but we believe in you. We see you, and we're going to have a plan for development. We're going to partner you up with some people to get you the skills that you need, to get you the familiarity. We're going to resource you. We're going to give you the resources so that you can be developed. We're going to check in with you. Man, when you get that right, if I'm a volunteer, if I'm like just a regular church attender and I come to your church and I say, I would love to share the gift that I believe God has given me, and you honor that and you steward that and you develop that, man, something special really happens. And I've seen that plan for development over and over again. And some of my best worship volunteers are ones that came to me and they were raw. They didn't quite have the resources at the time of their audition that I felt that I should have taken them. But I said, no, I see something in you. And if you're willing to work and willing to be developed, I will develop you. And we will get you to be a high functioning member of the team. 6 months later, they are one of our top performers. All right. So let's talk a little bit about development. So if you're sacrificing in the short term for the long-term gain, so the natural question you're thinking is, well, that sounds great, but like, what is development? Like, how do I develop people? And can I give you this truth that I believe that development is more about encouragement than about correction. Like, nobody likes to feel like every interaction we have is correction. Hey, you were doing this. Actually, we want you to do this. Over time, that really starts to erode the relationship. I believe that every relationship that we have, whether it's with our spouses, with our kids, with our parents, with our worship team members, with our team members, with our bosses, our upper bosses, our lower bosses, whatever, All of them are like a bank account. And it's our job in all of our relationships to put deposits into that bank account. It's our job to make intentional deposits into that account so that when you do need to kind of correction and when you do need to coach them in a certain way, that's like making a withdrawal. But if you're not depositing positivity and encouragement into that relationship, if all we're doing is withdrawing, think about your bank account. If all we do is withdraw from our bank account, at the end of the day, there's not going to be anything left in there. And then we're going to wonder why we have nothing. And I think that development is more about how can I encourage someone both practically in the skills that for the team that they're applying for and personally, because I don't think you can separate the two. I don't think we can separate who I am as a musician versus who I am as a person because they're interlinked. Who I am as a musician is directly linked to who I am as a person. And so because I'm not a machine, like all of us need encouragement and we thrive better when it's, hey, let me show you two things that you're doing awesome. Thank you so much for that. Like here's one thing I would maybe think about just kind of sanding off the rough edges. Here's one thing I would think about maybe improving upon. And here's how we're going to help you get there. But just, again, thank people for their time, all of that. So when we build confidence, we allow people to flourish. Confidence and performance are so intertwined, especially if you're working with volunteers. But this is applicable for any team. When you build confidence, you allow people to flourish under the positive reinforcement because they're not afraid for their jobs. They're not afraid that they're not living up to your expectation. That they see they see their leader as walking hand in hand with them versus the leader is at the back of the train calling the people forward, right? So I want to encourage you, think about how you can build confidence in your team today. Maybe that's just a kind word. Maybe as you're listening to this, you have a team member that you know, man, they just need to hear from me today. And they popped in your head. Shoot them a text real quick. You can pause this podcast. Shoot them a text. This is so important. Shoot them a text. Hey, was just thinking about you today. Just hope you're doing well. Thank you for being a part of the team. And be specific. Hey, I noticed the last week you did this. And just thank you so much for doing that. Those positive reinforcements, that builds confidence in their thinking of you as the leader. Like that builds their feeling of how they feel about you, how they feel about your organization. And that's how you build confidence. That's how you develop people. Number 4, the thought I would have is have a long-term plan. This is, again, specifically to ministry. I can't tell you how many ministry leaders, worship leaders, youth pastors I talk to that have no plan for what they need, have no long-term plan of, well, what are my team's needs? What are my holes? What do I need to develop? What do I need to do? And can I tell you, my first couple of gigs as a church worship leader and as a youth pastor, I didn't get this right. I didn't have a long-term plan. Most of that is because, ministry and your jobs and all that, it's stressful. You're trying to meet deadlines. There's always another service. You're kind of planning, you're putting out 100 fires versus realizing, hey, maybe I shouldn't store the oil and the spark next to each other. Like we're so busy putting out the little fires and taking care of all the little things we need to do that sometimes we forget, hey, let's just fix the source of this problem. And most of the time, the source of the problem is we just don't have enough people. And so if you encourage a culture of development and if you have a long-term plan, you can prevent a lot of those stresses. So I want to ask you a couple of questions. So think about your team. If you're watching this video, think about where you're at in your team. What are the needs that you have? Like, what are the things that if in a perfect world, money, people, no option, what would you say that you need? I need 2 more vocalists. Man, I need a consistent keys player. Man, I need another guitar player. Man, I need another small group leader. Man, I need maybe 2 greeters. two people to help in the parking lot, whatever it is. Get real and practical about your needs. Like, look at them and say, if money and people were no option, this is what I would like. This is what I need. And then think about kind of the next 6 months. Like, look at your current team and say, are there any big life changes coming up? You know, do I have a college student working with me who is going to graduate? I need to plan for that. Hey, this person's been serving every week, but there's a chance when they graduate in May, they may take another job, and they probably will take another job, and it might take them out. Think about it now, months before it happens, so you can make a plan for development. So you can say, cool, they're even, and if they don't, awesome, cool. But you still have people that you can never have too many people on your team. You can never have too many people that like are bought into the mission and the culture of what you're doing, and you can never have too many. So even if they don't move away, you still like have another person in the pipeline that's working and developing that you can kind of work in. So I want you to shift that focus to, I'm just going to put out every fire every week, day to day, zoom out, maybe once or twice a year, zoom out and say, okay, this is my team. What do I need? What do I wish that I had? And start to develop and make a plan for months from now. Because I've said it before and I'll say it again. If you fail to plan, then you're planning to fail. And you and I are not failures. We work hard on our teams, and we want to honor the situation and the people that we've been given to steward. So I want you to think about, what are the long-term plans for your team? What are your needs? What do you have? Get real about it. So then you can say, okay, I need to get 3 or 4 more people on the team. Now you can create a plan of, how do I get those 4 people? How do I encourage that? Can I make an announcement before service? Can I do a special event? Can I ask the people currently on the team if they have any friends that can serve along with them? If you're at a job, I've seen this so many times in the corporate space where managers will say, just ask the team, hey, we have 2 vacancies coming up. Do you know anybody that you can personally vouch for that we should bring on to the team? And if you've built your culture right and you built that development, man, you're going to get recommendations. You're going to get people like, oh, I have a friend who is working at this company right now, but I think they'd be a great fit. Then you can work with the personal recommendation. You can bring them on board. All right. So number 5. So you're hearing all of this and you're like, okay, good. Okay, I need to develop. I'm not doing that now. Great. Okay, another thing on my plate. I don't have the budget for it. What am I going to do? Can I tell you, you don't need to spend a single dollar on development. You can. Like, I run kfmusicstudio.com. We're working on some courses to kind of help. Like, there's a guitar course coming out. I've got a free guide right now, the 9 building blocks of music theory, that you can download right now at kfmusicstudio.com. Like, companies like mine and a lot of other companies are doing in this development space, but you don't have to spend a dollar on that. Like, the only investment you really need to make is time and energy. So be creative. So again, thinking about like the worship space, the musician space. So if you're looking at your team and you're a worship leader and you're like, okay, I don't have this instrument, or I don't have this. I want you to be creative. All right. Here's a couple things that I've used in the past. Can you partner with a local college or a local youth ministry or your own youth ministry? And can you have some people shadow them? Can you have people currently shadow your current people who are serving and ask, hey, you do this so well. Would you be willing to show them a couple of things or just help encourage them? I've had local college students come in and be small group leaders, be like, if I'm a ministry student, the only way you get better at ministry is you do it. Like, you just have to do it. You got to get the reps. You got to work with people. And so what I would encourage you with is, you don't have to spend a dollar on that, but partner with local colleges, maybe a local music studio near you where you can say, hey, I'm at so and so's church. We're next door. We love what you're doing. Do you have anybody that you think might be willing to serve on our team, be a part of our culture, uh, and maybe potentially become a long term partner with us? That doesn't have to be paid. But if I'm a 16-year-old kid and I'm working really hard on guitar, I need a chance to hone my craft. So it's a win-win for everybody. Now, you want to be careful with that, of course, because you don't want your church culture, you don't want your team to be just a bunch of hired hands. Now, if you're in the corporate world, you do want that. You're paying them, so you want to have that. But you want to strike that balance, right? But that's where the long-term planning comes in. That's where it says, hey, you know what? I'm going to work on getting a keys player in the next 3 months. So I reach out to couple of local music studios and say, do you have anybody who is willing to come in who we can develop along with the lessons that they're already taking? Maybe even partner with the teachers in the studios of those at those studios and say, hey, we would love to develop young worship leaders and give them an opportunity to hone their craft, to take their God-given talent and work on it. Do you have anybody? I can tell you right now, I teach private lessons at a studio. Love it. Man, I'm so grateful for what I get to do. But can I tell you, I have about 5 or 6 students right now that if somebody were to reach out to me and say, hey, we're looking to bring on some young people to like develop them because we have a need and we really care about the next generation. Do you have anybody you can recommend? I've got 5 or 6 right now that I would say, hey, they're at about 65, 70%, but they work hard and they're willing to learn. So I've got the people and I'm just one teacher. Think of all the teachers in your local area. Maybe a local high school. Maybe you can partner with them. Same conversations. I think if we are intentional about finding opportunities for people to get plugged in to define their God-given talent, they're there. And so I want to encourage you, think creative. All right. Don't just send out on your Instagram, your church's Instagram, we need musicians, come join our team. People are not always going to reach out. Like, you'll get a few, but you'll get more if you go find them. And I think there's some parallels to how we always say that Jesus is the good shepherd, how he leaves the 99 sheep that are in the pen and chases after the one that's lost. Now, is that a one-to-one comparison? No. But I think it shows the character of Jesus and the character of God, that he is willing to go find people and develop them and coach them up. Look at how Jesus found the disciples. He didn't put up a sign that said, now recruiting disciples. That would be foolish. But what he did was he said, hey, you two guys, lay down your fishes, lay down your nets. I'm going to teach you to be fishers of men. He called that out of them. And so I want to encourage you, be bold, be spirit-led. Look for opportunities to build people up. They will be there, and you'll be a much stronger leader and a much stronger team if you do that. And number 6, the last thought I have for you. Please remember that every person on your team is an individual. They are a singular person. So I've been fortunate to work in a big church, multi-site churches, where our worship teams, where our roster of people who have been vetted and auditioned and are on the team is huge. And it's super easy to look at them as just a group of names. So if you're like a vice president and you have 100 people in your department, it's really easy to look at that and say, they're just 100 numbers. Can I encourage you? Your job as a leader, your ministry, your church, your job, your department should value people. You should treat them with kindness and with respect. You should love on them. When we don't do that, when we focus on development and what can people do for my team without the kindness and respect, that's not leadership, that's not mentorship, that's manipulation. That's manipulating somebody for your gain. As somebody who has served in places where that has happened to me, where people only wanted to have a relationship with me, only cared about me because of what I could bring to the team, not because of who I was as a person. Can I tell you, you sniff that out right away. I knew that right away within a couple of meetings with several high level executives that, hey, you're only having this conversation because you want something from me, or you feel like I can be a big part of the team, but you don't know anything about me. And you've made no effort to learn anything about me. And by the way, the second I left that organization, when I left, suddenly all that relationship building went away and I never heard from him again. Well, that's manipulation. That's not what we're talking about here. And please make sure to root that out of your churches, especially because, man, that causes so much damage in somebody's life. But I want you to legitimately treat people with kindness and respect. Like, this should be number one. This should be the most basic thing. Like, treat people with respect. Because if you do that, if you value people, man, people are going to work harder. They're going to work better. They're going to care more. They're going to be more bought in because they see you not as somebody who's just trying to get something from them. They see you as somebody who just wants a relationship with them. I've been fortunate to be serving in and out of a lot of different musical gigs at different churches. And man, it is such a difference when a church says, they don't have to say the words. They just, with their spirit, they say, if you never play a single note for us, you're still a part of the community. Like, we still value you. I still want to take you to coffee, and I want to pick your brain. I want to, like, the fun churchy phrase of do life with you. Like, I want to build a relationship with you, regardless of whether or not you ever play for us. Man, when you have somebody say that and have that spirit about them, then you want to jump in. You can't help it. It's attractive. You want to further the mission of that organization. And that's what I want for you. I want you to value every person. Like, at the end of the day, when we talk about development, and we've run through a bunch of stuff, if you're not intentionally developing your team is not growing. Sometimes you need to sacrifice in the short term to gain in the long term. Number 3 is development is more about encouragement than correction. Number 4 is have a long-term plan for your ministry or for your team. Number 5, you don't need to spend $1 on development. And number 6, remember that every person on your team is an individual who deserves value and respect, regardless if they ever serve on or would not, regardless of whatever they give to you or give to the church, ultimately give to God through the local church. Irregardless of any of that, irregardless is not a word, but you know what I'm saying. Treat everybody with kindness and with respect. And if you do those things, development will become a part of your culture. All right, I'm cheering you on. Leave a comment below of which one of these really helped you out. Share this podcast with a friend. We're just here weekly, just trying to share some of the lessons that I've learned over my years of just trying to navigate this life and leadership and ministry and music and education. And so I hope that this has been helpful for you. We love you. Leave a comment below. I'm so thankful. Check out KF Music Studio. Things are changing all the time, but there'll be some courses and a lot of free stuff up there. I would love to help you out and partner with you. So this has been another episode of the KF Music Studio, episode number 4, talking development. Let's go. I hope that you left feeling encouraged, and we will see you next time on the KF Music Studio podcast. See ya.